All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome to another issue of Illustration Masterclass. Today we're going to be looking at the art of uh, McKean, Dave McKean, who's a comic artist, and he's done some pretty amazing stuff. His style is super unique, and I think Dave is like a really good example of the type of artist it is that his style is so unique, and it's to me it's so American, right? Because he's a comic artist, and or at least that's one of the things he does is he does comics outside of illustrations and things like that. But what's interesting about his approach and why I consider it to be so American is that it's so completely individual to him. It's very specifically him. It's not really something we see so much in Japan, for example, where everybody kind of has this anime aesthetic that everybody is drawing in, and then everybody is improvising within the certain parameters of that style, right? Um, like whereas I feel like in the East, it's almost like that's kind of it's almost like a hand style everybody's trying to imitate. Whereas with Dave's work, it becomes very clear that this is like a personal exploration of different kinds of styles. And I'm assuming that I can see this glare of light here, so I think that this is all collage stuff that he put here on the canvas, which is pretty cool. That's something it is that I would love to do. I would love to do like collage type stuff like this. Um, he has this really interesting mix between doing these collages, but it's also a painting, right? And you have like all these buildings up here. It's really interesting because there's design elements going on here, but it almost becomes very difficult to explain other than the fact that we clearly have like this motion that's going through here and it's going up here and it's going here. And so it's creating this kind of circle, like he has elements of lines, like this is pointing down, this is obviously pointing down, and then this right here, these little like golden crest things, right? They're making like a circle that goes around here, and then obviously this kind of encircles the guy's head. So it's interesting. I don't really know what this piece is about, but I love the way it looks. This is a comic book page. Again, I love how exploratory the whole thing is, right? Like it's kind of difficult to tell what medium he did this in. I assume he probably did it digital, um, but you can tell from the way it is that he's drawing that he's not necessarily concerned about being the most anatomically correct. He's not really concerned about being precious with what it is that he's doing. He's creating something, and this aesthetic it is that he has. He's interested in exploring that. I mean, it almost feels like a David Lynch painting or something, right? Like if David Lynch had become a comic book artist rather than a filmmaker, then maybe he would be making something along these lines. And I love the way that he represents this skull, right? Like we obviously have this guy. He's laying in some giant. I imagine it's like a hole in the ground or something, and it's full of blood, and he's looking around, he's trying to get out, and then all of a sudden the skull appears in front of him, and then the skull begins to talk to him. But I love the way he represented it. Like it's a very dynamic, interesting shot. The dynamic that he creates between these two, this stationary skull here, right? And the way it is that it looks here, it looks very symbolic. It feels very symbolic. And then as we get closer to it, he adds in more detail. Obviously, he's adding in more detail because we can see the jaw is missing here, but it seems to be coming up out of the blood here. Really cool. Love it. Again, like more of this kind of collage style. I really dig it. I think there's a lot of opportunities for doing like digitally manipulated stuff. that he capitalizes on, and he has like his own way of, of doing it, um, that is pretty unique to him, right? I feel like this is like this looks like something taken from like art, like prehistoric art, and then you have this, what I assume would be like a god, or maybe it's a person wearing a buffalo head, and it looks like they're almost playing like a flute, like they made some sort of a flute out of this piece of wood, and maybe they're playing it and summoning this god that's up here at the top, that's represented in this mask. But you have those different elements of contrast here that just makes it really interesting to look at. You have the contrast of different textures, right? He's very good at mixing these different kinds of textures together. But then also the colors. Again, like the colors are not literal. They're not meant to be taken literally. So he's not afraid to just come up with what looks like randomness, but is actually a great sense of design, right? You have the two contrasting colors that we always talk about on here, which is the blue here, and then the orange over here, right? And then you have this red in here in the middle that connects those two. And blue and orange are complementary. And then we see the same blue and orange is carried throughout the rest of it. We see the orange back here in the background, and the gold leaf. But then also in the mask, we have this blue and this gold. So it's not random, right? There's a reason why it is that he darkened this half of the image, but he illuminated this half of the image because the light is coming this way. And so we have this very diagonal, this dynamic image that is created because it's diagonal. And even the posture of the figure on the bottom is slightly diagonal. This feels like a pencil drawing that he did. This feels like a pencil drawing, maybe with some watercolor over it or something like that. I'm actually only got a few minutes left, so I'm just going to kind of breeze through these. Yeah, again, I guess this is something he did for Dark Horse. I think that it's really cool that everything it is that he does, he goes in a different direction with it. But you can still tell it's his work because there's this abstract style to what it is that he's doing, right? I mean, to me, he's somebody who has like a singular vision with the way he does things. Again, the first thing it is that I notice is this very simple contrast here, right? You have the blue here in this little medallion. It's very not easy to see at first, but there's this little third eye blue medallion. And then you have this gold that surrounds the whole thing. And then you have different elements of things that are kind of supporting that, right? He's wanting your eye to go to this figure in the red. So he has a knife that intersects with this, right? And notice that all of these lines kind of all take us in the same direction. They're pointing us down here to her. You could say this is pointing us downwards to her. This, I would say, it just runs parallel to her. So it's a little less obvious, right? But these lines go here, and then they go here, and they go here. And that's why he put the three skulls here, right? And that's why he put this skull here. He's not placing them randomly, is what I'm getting at, right? And even these are going diagonally down here, so you could think of these as going here, they hit this, and then they go this way. Right? But what his talent is in like this multitude of different textures and different ways that he conveys something, right? So you have this right here, and this intersects, this converges with so many different elements here, but if we turn this off, and again, if we just zoom in and we look, we can see there's all sorts of texturing going on in the face and hands, right? I love this stuff. Don't get mad at me if I grab something that's not his. Some of this stuff can be kind of difficult to tell whether it is his or not, but we only have a few pages left. But this is an example of a good like three-tone comic, right? He's got these blacks, and then he's got a blue midtone, and then he's got the white. I love this Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe. Piece right here. Great example of a lot of different things. I mean, it feels like a taxidermy doll, right? Like a Frankenstein taxidermy doll. Or it feels like something out of Alice in Wonderland or Nightmare Before Christmas or something like that. Really cool. Alright, we got one or two left, and we'll go ahead and wrap this up. We got some boobage here. Hopefully YouTube doesn't strike me for that. But again, I mean, like, his stuff, it has like almost kind of an occultist kind of feel to it, with the textures and the subject matter that he's using and the way that he's conveying it. I think it's just really beautiful, beautiful work. We'll go ahead and end it on this one. I feel like this is probably a very classic image of one of his. And you can kind of see how he builds the image, right? Like, what are the images that he's searching for? And I honestly feel like this is like a very 1990s kind of image. You know, it feels like an industrial goth kind of image, right? You have these gears up here, right? Rusty colors. And you start to see a theme. You see the gears here, copper wire, rusted metal, what looks like might be bone or rusted cloth. And then you have that kind of contrasting against these blue x-ray photos of like hands and bones in the neck. And then this image right here as well, which looks like it's some sort of a combination of like maybe a pair of scissors or something. I don't know, it's kind of hard to tell. But it feels like something you would see like on the back of a Nine Inch Nails album cover or something, you know, like on the inside of a Nine Inch Nails booklet or something. Anyways, guys, that's what I got for you this week. I've got some more process videos coming up. I've got some more interviews, and I've got a bunch of other stuff that I'm going to be showing off for my comic, which is the Philip K. Dick Files, which you can get the first 2 issues for free in the description box below. So please feel free to check those out. And I've got some other stuff going on. I've got my shop is up with some original illustrations and paintings and all sorts of different stuff. So if you guys want to check that out, you can check it out in the link below in the description box. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and let me know if there's an artist it is that you would like for me to cover next. Thanks. Take care.